This episode is supported by MonsterJoysticks.com, purveyors of quality joysticks for all of your retro kit. Joysticks, adapters, arcade control parts and more. Check them out at MonsterJoysticks.com, and we thank them for supporting The Cave.
Hello, and thanks for coming along. So we're going to do this in two sessions, as I sort of said. We're going to start talking about the 8-bit days to begin with. I'm Philip.
I'm Andrew. Yeah.
And we're going to just take the slides in turn, and then, as I said, the second session we'll do sort of what we did since all the 8-bit stuff. So do you want to move
And
on
obviously in between we'll just chat to people, and by giving this talk people might think of lots of questions. Like, we've obviously been chatting to people anyway, but suddenly, oh my God, like, did you really do that? Or I don't know, but our original bedroom, Star Wars wallpaper. We were staring at Star Wars wallpaper the whole time. It's incredibly over the top and glitzy. Anyhow, okay, so yeah, is it 1:30? Is that the time we're doing?
No, I think times have changed, but hey.
Yeah, okay, right. So that's generally the agenda that we're going to stick to. Is that okay? Is that the agenda?
Yeah, roughly. We'll probably might pull that forward a little bit.
I was just going to say that.
Whatever.
Seems a bit early. So, so we were born at the end of the 60s, which was an interesting time. Obviously, the moon landing was the big thing that everyone knows at the end of the 60s. And
we knew nothing about it. We were too small.
No. But when we started to know about things, it was a time where computers had been invented when we were sort of born and managed to get people to the moon. So
and you could do cars with AI.
Yeah, self-driving cars. Anyway, don't know anything about that. Anyway, but yeah, when we were, 8 or 9 or something, it was Star Trek, and it was just so unbelievably cool. And obviously, one of the things about Star Trek, apart from it was because of the moon mission that everyone thought, it won't be too long before we're traveling the stars. It won't be too long before we can
try and get back there.
Let's see if we can do it again. Well, that's quite hard. It's proving quite hard to keep putting it off. But obviously, actually, and this is a funny thing, is remember that TV started to go colour. So this was one of the very first things that anyone ever saw on colour. But unlike when Snow White went in the cinema and suddenly everyone saw colour at the same time because of the projection, it was up to people to buy colour TV. So everyone was upgrading to colour TVs. And I think in this country we had Captain Scarlet. Wonder where the name came from. And then Star Wars was unbelievable. I mean, that was the thing. We were at school at about 11 or 12 or something, and you're trying to get into the cinema and you would queue down the road knowing that you won't get into the next showing, but you might get into the next showing after that. So literally you'd go down in the morning, there'd be a queue down the street, and you'd go, okay, well,
I've 4 hour queue.
I've missed the 2 o'clock showing because I can work out the length of the queue. But people were just at school going, I've seen it like 11 times so far. And it's like, that's why we're not getting into the cinema. But it was incredible, and it was so ahead of its time. Anyway, so this was the time that you're very impressionable at the sort of age of 10, I think. It was about that time. A friend of ours got a pet computer. Well, his dad played with it. It's funny how it's sort of modelled over a cash register. It's like a computer that's a cash register.
Worked as well as a cash register,
but you
to
could
be fair.
just about like program it to do like Pong and things. But then obviously early 80s, you've seen all of it here. It just exploded with home computers because of the arcades. So we knew the arcades from Space Invaders and Pac-Man and putting 10p's in and getting quite addicted to like trying to beat each other's score. But it was a magic that you could control the screen. There was just something absolutely like mind-blowing. How can you control?
You were living in the future when you were playing one of these things.
Yeah, and obviously a proliferation of home computers with the idea, got to get one, got to work out how this works and try and write your own stuff.
Yeah, the first one we got was one of these little things. And do you know what you learn by getting one of these little things? You need a better computer. That's what you learn.
1K of memory.
1K of memory, a paper keyboard that only works half the time when you push the buttons, and when it does, the screen blanks out and kind of no sound unless you bang it. I say no sound, it's got like a speaker thing on the back. Anyway, yeah, they're pretty awful, I'm afraid. Sorry. Luckily, his next effort was a bit better. We got one of them as well here. So obviously Spectrum. ZX82 Spectrum. So we'd got the bug from kind of the arcade and playing all of those. We started sort of learning BASIC. Tried it on that. No, it didn't really work, but we worked out that a Dragon 32 was coming, summer 82 this is.
Have you got one here somewhere? You must have a
Dragon 32. Should have brought one.
What a classic machine. Like operating system by a little known company called Microsoft. I'd never heard of it. But a machine that was made in Cardiff or Swansea, and sold by Mattel. It was just a sort of like hodgepodge thing of.
Anyway,
but it was cool.
But so that had colour. It had BASIC. It had 32K memory and a keyboard. It had sprites. Kind of. They were very slow, but so we kind of learned to program on that. And one of the reasons we learned to program on it was because there weren't many games on it. And games are expensive, and we found that once you've played the Kong or Killer Gorilla or whatever they called it.
Killer Gorilla.
I know. That might have been a BBC one. But once we sort of played that and exhausted that, there wasn't much else on that machine. So we just ended up sort of trying to make our own games and try and emulate things like Pac-Man and stuff. We found it pretty tricky, but in trying to do that, we learned how to program BASIC. We also learned that this computer wasn't very popular, and we'd really got the bug. And in fact, we managed to do a whole load of paper rounds and other bits and pieces and save up enough money and parents' presents and all this kind of stuff. It all got clubbed together to buy a BBC Micro, which is a much better computer, much faster. And we were able to go and learn assembler 6502. That machine was a brilliant machine for education. Great BASIC, but great the fact that you could also learn assembler, kind of machine code, and put the two interleaved, which was an amazing thing, but it helped you sort of break it in. On other computers, you had to go 100% one or 100% the other. Here, you could actually sort of mix and match and cross over a little bit, which really helped. And we discovered that once you're into making assembler, everything runs so fast and so slick, because that's what the machines want to do. They don't really want to run BASIC, and they run really slowly. And so we started writing sort of KV, which is like an arcade machine game. It's a little bit like Space Invaders, but kind of set in prehistoric times. So you're a caveman shooting pterodactyls with a spear, and it was kind of good fun. Acornsoft were going to publish it, but at the last minute they kind of backed out because of their own financial issues. But we did win a TV show and got it published by Acornsoft with a game which on the TV show it's called a strategy, but we renamed it to Gambit. They did publish that one, which was kind of nice to have that publisher publish our stuff, but the game was so god-awful it was also embarrassing. Got to start somewhere. But the most important thing was kind of getting graphics onto the screen. That's what fascinated us most. And in fact, it was quite difficult to program graphics and get the graphics onto the screen. So one of the first things we wrote was Easy Art. There we go, I brought it along. Which was kind of an art package.
That's what it says on a box. It's easy to make art. Because on computers, it
was actually a hard thing to do.
How did you make graphics? There was absolutely nothing. You turn these computers on, you get a little blinking cursor. It's like, what? And the first thing you want to do is, I want it to look visually nice and move
I heard this
around.
computer had colour. Why are you showing me a blinking cursor on a black screen? It's like, so anyway, we kind of did this, and it was partly because we could and we wanted to kind of play around with graphics and experiment with graphics, but then we thought, well, so does everybody else want to. So we produced that first. We did actually produce it on BBC. It never got published on the BBC first. But then the minute we realised we can do these kind of full screens of graphics, which look really nice and people can paint pictures, it's to what end? It's like, no, what you really need to do is have sprites that you can move all these little graphics around the screen and then make games from them. So the next thing we did was Panda sprites, which we called we called this a sprite package, Panda sprites.
P and A.
Yeah, that's why it's called Panda. So
no other reference to animals, it was just our initials.
So here, what we did was we made it so you could draw little sprites on screen. You could do animating sprites. You could spin them.
It's a gift maker.
It kind of is. But we gave the routines to actually sit alongside them so that people could write a game in BASIC, but use the sprites at the same time. So you could write a game only knowing BASIC, but actually have machine code sprites, which mean they were really, really fast. And there were a few games published out there by other people that use Panda sprites, got published games out there. We found a few in the market. There was a funny kangaroo boxy one we found. But generally, it wasn't that successful a thing. It was used for hobbyists, but it was amazing for us to develop things because we had this really amazingly fast pipeline now where we could draw the sprites on screen really quickly, animate them, spin them, everything else, and we had all the source code to then put them on screen very, very quickly.
Yeah, so it was a slick pipeline. This is us winning a TV competition. Some of you have probably seen it. Some of you have probably seen this bloody presentation, but you're going to see it again anyway. Says your wife coming along.
Right, well, now it's time to find out who's won our computer competition. You remember a few weeks ago we asked you to design a game and send it in either as a drawing or else as a cassette. Just remind us what sort of special things you were looking for before we meet the winners.
Well, it was looking for obviously the game concept.
Right, let's meet these guys, shall we? Can we have a nice welcome, please, for our computer competition winners, Philip and Andrew Oliver from Trowbridge in Wiltshire. Where are they? Which is which?
I'm Andrew. I'm Philip.
Andrew and Philip. All right. I think the thing we ought to do really is take a look at your game in action.
Okay. So let's start a game now.
Right, the arrows in the top corner indicate player. So I move a wall first.
Right.
And the wall appears.
Prizes anyway, and I know that everybody will be green with envy. They got a nice computer of their own at home, so we said, why don't you choose another prize? And you've decided to go for what's called a high-resolution monitor, whatever that is, for goodness sake. I suppose you lot know. So once again, congratulations to the winners of our computer competition, the Olivers!
A couple of things there. Nice computer. They rebranded it. We're on ITV. You can't call it a BBC computer when you're on ITV, so they rebranded it to a nice computer, and it was. I'll tell you what.
The high-resolution monitor was a Commodore monitor, and we used it for years and years. And
32240.
I mean, we've generally had it around. Is it at the museum?
No, it's in my loft.
Oh, it is
I
in
could have
your
brought it if I wanted to get that down.
But the actual thing was, up to then we were programming with just a portable TV. And suddenly we had this, what they call high-resolution monitor. It was colour and it was a stable image.
Yeah, a stable image. Can you
God.
believe it? It's like, seriously, trying to look at code on a portable RF cable TV. It's just horrible.
And then the monitor was amazing.
Yeah, so that was a significant prize. That made a big difference. Go on, you can do this one.
Okay, so so we'd made a few games, and that's when we were all in the sixth form. So we were making an engine, learning assembler, whatever. Got to the end, and Dad wanted us to go to university. This is all in the book. Some of you have probably read this. Anyway, but we wanted to pursue the idea of making games because we thought there may be an industry here. You know, Atari were making an industry of it if they didn't f up so badly and like went bankrupt. No, but the thing is, we had this belief that it's like, look, there's lots of these computers coming out, and every single one is better than the last, and it's just going to go up and up and up. So we wanted to pursue this, and if we went to university, we'd lose 3 years because there was nothing at university that was going to teach us how to make Spectrum games. Honestly, there wasn't. We did find some courses that program databases, Pascal and COBOL and stuff, and we were like, no, don't Lisp. We were like, we don't want to learn any of these languages. Z80, 6502, 68,000. Anyhow, so we managed to, our head teacher managed to convince our mum and dad to let us take a year out, which wasn't a thing generally, to see if we can make a business of it. And it was really good actually, because one of the things we did is like, right, we've got to get serious. We've written all these games as hobbyists and we've chucked out these and got whipped off and not really been paid, but they're in the shops. We could go to Woolworths and see our games.
Killipede.
We just weren't getting money for it. So it was like, right, we have to make money. So one of the things was we joined what they call the Enterprise Allowance Scheme. Margaret Thatcher trying to get people off the dole.
Had to sign up and be made.
We had to go to the dole centre, and they said, "So what?
Job centre.
What is? So what is your thing? Are you going to become a window cleaner, or like are you going to try and do a market store?" It's like, we're going to make video games.
What?
how does that work? And it's like, well, we've made some while we were at school. Anyway, but the point is, we were signed up to this official thing, and effectively,
you kind of gave it credibility to what we were doing, because what we were doing was a bit weird, and anybody you ever told what we were doing, it's like.
But it was kind of funny because you could go on a doll and get
people.
like 20 quid a week. But if you went on the enterprise allowance scheme, you'd get 40 quid each. But we didn't want to go on the doll. I mean, our parents are, I was going to say, reasonably well off. They got regular jobs and we could afford a computer. But you had to sign up. But you had to go to these little lessons, and you had to get an accountant. You had to
have a company name and all this kind of actually a brand name. It was a partnership.
Yeah, you had to have a business proposal, like what was your business proposal, and you had to work all these things
which
out.
Which I do actually have still.
Yeah, so we don't chuck anything away. We're worse than Dizzy. Right, anyway, but the point is, it sort of legitimised it. But then we went and met Rich and David Darling, who's setting up Codemasters, at a show down in London in Hammersmith, and we presented an idea.
Super Robin Hood.
And it was just an idea. But the interesting thing is, they weren't actually employing. Some people had started to employ, but a lot of it was like the music industry. You send in a demo tape and they pay you. But actually, we sort of said, and if anyone had said, well, do you want a job? And there had been a couple of people who said, would you come work for us? It's like, we've set up our own business and we're on this scheme. We have to kind of see the scheme through. Which I think, so not only was it kind of funny that we were getting like drip feeding of money, but it made us feel like we were running our own company, which wasn't the sort of entrepreneurial spirit that they wanted. It's just that we ended up like sending every game to Codemasters.
Well, almost every.
Yes. So Super Robin Hood, it was a paper proposal, and we were just thinking, what can we write that would be a fun game that people get? People, how do you know if a game is going to be good? It's like, and how do you know that you can write it? And we thought, right, a sideways like platform, a snakes and ladders where you're shooting things should work. And if you base it on a castle and Robin Hood and stuff, and another thing is like shooting had just started to become a thing, but we were like, there's a problem with shooting. It's instantaneous and you can't see where the bullets are. So if somebody shoots you, like you're kind of knackered. So we thought arrows, you can see them shoot through the air. Although even those are very, very slow because you need time to duck. If someone shoots you it's like if someone shoots you with a bullet, you can't duck. But we thought, you can with an arrow. No, I probably couldn't actually. But we can in ours.
In Judge Dredd, one of the games we made later, it looks like they're kind of firing tennis balls at you because you've got to be able to dodge them. It's like
slow. Yeah. Anyway, so Super Robin Hood did really well. We wrote it in about a month because they said that they would pay us 10,000 for a game. If we could make that game, it was about 10,000. And whole story where it wasn't actually 10,000, it was royalties. But actually, we turned it around, got it back to them really quick, and it did go to #1 in the charts, and they did pay us about that amount in royalties. So we just immediately, oh my God.
Do that again.
This is the start of our business. With #1 in the charts. Oh my God. Just do it again. And effectively, we brand it. We brand the same thing because we were using like all the same sprites and things. So it's like, right, get the engine and how can we make the same game look completely different and get it out there quick? And we came up with the idea of Ghost Hunters, which is our love of Scooby-Doo, really. Haunted house, lots of things going on.
And Ghostbusters.
And Ghostbusters, yes, because Ghostbusters 1 had come out. So, and Rambo. Look, is it obvious we'd just watched the film Rambo? It's like, you can actually see the era. So there's a few sort of inspirations taken, let's say. Oh, and Mission Impossible. Or
Impossible, which is the C64 game.
The C64 game. That
with the running man.
Looks virtually identical to the...
There's a reason for that.
Yeah. Anyway.
I sat there studying it. And
going, that looks a nice little running man. It's really hard to draw those graphics at that sort of resolution and make them look realistic. Anyhow.
It was actually whilst drawing that man that I was getting so tired of the fact that it's like, I've got 3 pixels by 3 pixels and 3 colours because you've got to have it transparent. You're only allowed 4 colours. And it's right. So I got so tired of like, do I put a nose on him? Do I not put a nose on him? If I put a nose on him, he looks like Pinocchio. If I put a nose on, if I don't put a nose on him, he looks like a boxer that's kind of been smacked in the face. I can't remember what I concluded, but what I did conclude was, it's so annoying having so few pixels when you're trying to draw the head and the face of something. And so I just idly went off and drew in the sprite package, in the Panda sprites, I just idly went off and sort of drew this big face. And they're like, look, you can do eyes and a mouth. And it's like, look, I can actually kind of almost show a personality on this. It's like, yeah, we can't move that around the screen. It's like, can't. But if I stick some little legs on here and if I stick some little arms on here, it's like, actually, that looks quite fun. It's like, yeah, but we're doing a Ghost Hunters game. It's like, okay, we'll come back to that.
Yeah. The other thing is there was the limitation of only being able to move tiny sprites around. That's a technical restriction. But also, even if you could, and I think there had been 1 or 2 Spectrum games where they made the character nice and big, so they looked really good. It's like, well, you've got no screen space for gameplay. It's like you need a decent amount of map to move around. So if you made the character twice as big, like that would be your room. Your room would be that, and it's like, oh my god,
there's nothing here.
You can't do anything. So it's actually quite good. It's like Lemmings are tiny, but you can see quite a lot, and there's a lot you can do with it if you make them really small. But the conclusion being is like, well, just make the face and the happy face be the whole thing.
And it seemed to work.
Yeah.
It worked. It kind of worked for us, but I have to say it was quite a slow seller when we did release it, because up until then we kind of traded off kind of other brand names like Robin Hood. Oh, I know what that's going to be. It's going to be you playing Robin Hood, and you're going to be in a castle with rescuing Maid Marian and archers. Brilliant. Bought. Ghost Hunters, yeah, well, you can kind of see it's a haunted house and you like Ghostbusters and all this kind of stuff. So it sold okay, not quite as well. Dizzy, of course, nobody knew what the hell that was, so that did not sell okay.
Although it does say by the authors of Grand Prix Simulator, by the Oliver Twins, the authors of Grand Prix Simulator, first reference to sort of Oliver Twins, but we had written a racing game because Richard Darling, the founder of Codemasters, one of the brothers, wrote BMX Simulator, which was a massive seller. And it was actually pretty good, and we were all going, it's pretty good. And it's like, but we sort of said, well, we don't really care about BMX, but like people care about cars. Why don't we do pretty much the same game, but we'll do it with cars, because then that will sell better. And
which it did.
It did sell really well.
That was Grand Prix Simulator, which is under there, and I tried ripping it out, but I can't because somebody's put Perspex on here.
Brilliant. Right, anyway, it stops people playing with it. Anyway, right. And yeah, we learned from this little flip book, Z80, which is just an instruction per page, which was bloody useful, but didn't tell you any techniques or anything. So we just made it up as we went along. But secret to our success, apart from having our own sprite package and using our own, like keep using the same routines and stuff, was the fact that we did everything on the Amstrad. We did a 6128, but I think we did have one of those originally.
Yeah, that was the first one we started on.
Yeah. Okay. So,
but it's got a disk drive. It's got a disk drive. Oh, it's so good. Don't use cassettes. Cassettes are so bad.
But the thing is, if you're programming one of those and you're programming a game, especially if it's an assembler, if it crashes, it all like resets and go, oh no.
Lost everything.
You lost everything. At least with a disk drive, you could save to a disk drive and then run it and then it would crash. But we were writing on a Spectrum now, and it was like, we were not going to use that funny little rubbery keyboard and stuff like that. It was like, whoa.
Or a cassette.
And a friend of ours who had just gone off to university was doing electronics at university, and he goes, I could get your Spectrum plugged into the back of the Amstrad. He said, I'll plug it in the printer port, and effectively you write a little routine so it thinks it's sending this to the printer, but the Spectrum will just receive a whole chunk of data, and it's just, you're just sort of mapping the chunk of data onto the Spectrum and then just executing it. And it was like, oh, this is like magic. Because you suddenly, it was funny because you suddenly had
I'm not sure if it was the expansion port or the printer port, to be fair.
Oh, it might, no, the expansion port had the ROM
Maxam ROM assembler.
Yeah, so we were using a ROM assembler for that. But we suddenly had 2 screens and 2 computers, slave computer and stuff like that. And it was like, oh my God, this makes things so much easier. And you would literally just sort of like, looking at the code, running it, pinging it across. It did take about a minute or something. Running it, and I just tweak it a bit, run it again. And it's like, other people were like saying that their iteration circles were like 10, 20 minutes.
Yeah,
like,
so
we could just...
So this one was our first Spectrum game. The guy who wrote the Spectrum version of this, Mark Baldock, he was taking a couple of months, and we'd actually made the joke to Codemasters, just saying, why does it take so long? It only took us a month to write the original, and we gave him all the source code, and it's like, why does it take so long? It's like...
there are 2 of us.
And David basically gave us a Spectrum and said, well...
Do it yourself.
Stop when you're doing it yourself. Stop when you're doing it yourself. So that's what we did do. And we actually found that the Amstrad source code that we actually had was Z80, and the Spectrum is also Z80. And actually, coincidentally, we'd mapped the right resolution, so it was actually really easy to port it all over. And so it took about a week to port the first game. After this, all the games we ported were all the same routines. So in fact, we got porting down to like a day to do all our Spectrum games.
Although people did notice that we started being a bit cheap on the graphics, because we did the graphics knowing that the major version that was going to sell was a Spectrum, so make it look good in Spectrum graphics, even if you're running it on an Amstrad, which was a bit cheap. A bit cheap.
Doesn't matter.
But
Save loads of memory on the Amstrad, so your games could be bigger on the Amstrad.
The games were bigger for it on the Amstrad, and
then they would have been otherwise.
And they didn't have the colour clash. They just weren't as colourful as they may have been able to be possible. We need to move this on faster and faster.
Okay, so the first Dizzy, not successful when it was first launched, but then it just sold and sold and sold and sold, and eventually the sales kind of got there over about a year, and we're thinking, so after about a year, it's like, actually this one sold really well, and the royalties still really going well, and actually it's now looking quite old, and we'd like to improve a lot of things on it. So we decided to do Dizzy 2, otherwise known as Treasure Island Dizzy, but we also wanted to catch the Christmas sales, so we gave ourselves a month standard to sort of get the thing finished, and I think it was kind of October time, and you're trying to get the Christmas sales.
There had been lots of missing games in this list, by the way.
Oh yeah, loads of missing games. But anyway, but the problem was that we'd kind of set ourselves a deadline to give the master to Codemasters, and right at the end, we found a little bit of a fundamental flaw that if you put the snorkel down underwater, you're dead, and then you get another life, and that one's dead because it's underwater, and you're in the ground again.
Treehouse that you can.
Yeah, and then we thought about all these other problems. So at the last minute, we took the 3 lives out and said, "We'll just give them 1 life, and that solves the bug. We can now go and give the masters to Codemasters."
Sorry everyone for that.
Yeah.
It was a logic bug, and it would take a hell of a lot of reworking. We just couldn't work out how to easily do it.
Yeah, but anyway, it did sell phenomenally well, and people really loved it. But although they could also say it's damn tough. Well, it would have been a lot easier with 3 lives, I can tell you that.
They were designed for 3 lives.
So
anyway, moving on.
Yeah, you did say go quicker. Right.
So we felt we had to go back and do another one.
Yeah, to fix that.
Partly because that one did sell, but also we felt embarrassed and thought, right, we'll now design it in a way that you can do all puzzles in all different orders, but you can't mess it up and suddenly get completely stuck. The problem is you didn't know you were stuck sometimes. There were scenarios where you're just wandering backwards and forwards, and we've got to make sure that there is definitely a way out of that. And actually that did take some designing and mapping and getting the wallpaper out and like drawing it and going, right, if you take that to there, and we're thinking, is there any way that you could like screw it up and get stuck?
So we designed for the next one, Dizzy 3, Fantasy World Dizzy, to make sure that we'd aimed off all of that. We put all the lives back in. I think you'd even get a couple of extra lives during the gameplay. We introduced a bunch of characters, because in the Treasure Island Dizzy, you actually meet a couple of characters. Like, I think it's a shopkeeper and one other or something, and it puts these little signs up, and we think, actually, that's a really, really nice feature, and we need to do more of that. So actually, it's got some great little storylines in there.
Funny little jokes.
Characters.
Look, you can pick up a hole, but then you'll have a hole in your bag and it all drops out.
Indeed. Don't put a hole in your bag.
Yeah. Funny little things like that.
Right, so then...
I remember people coming to us for years going, what was the red herring for? Just drop it. Never found a use for that one. At this point, this was the end of '89. We went to CES in America, Consumer Electronics Show, where they launched the Nintendo.
And it's in Vegas, and that was quite eye-opening. But the size of the stands for Nintendo was phenomenal, and we just couldn't believe what a massive industry it was over there. So there's us knocking out all these games, which did feel like a cottage industry to us. Just putting out all these games and doing okay out of it. And then you see the size of the market in America and go, oh my goodness. And then you look at the games like Super Mario Bros. And you're like, we could have done that.
It didn't seem too hard.
Yeah, it's like we could do that in about a month, I reckon. So why did we do that? So anyway, with Codemasters, we all agreed that we were going to start writing some NES games and then sell NES games. But equally, back in the UK, we knew that Dizzy games would sell on the Spectrum, the Amstrad, by now the ST and Amiga as well. So I ended up starting just designing them while Andrew was doing a lot of coding on the NES. And so these other Dizzy games come out. I didn't actually design that one. I won't take any credit for that one. I did a bit on this one, quite a lot on that one.
But you were
most of
managing
that one, and I was kind of managing them
Yeah.
as well. So that's kind of where those games come from. Let's move on a little bit.
Okay. And obviously the NES was just a Commodore 64, so it was like we reverse engineered an NES and tried to get it working because there were no dev kits. It was just like buy one out of the shop, stick a cable in the back of it. Which
There was an
had to
electronics
do.
guy at Codemasters.
Yeah,
was
but
kind
he
of
stuck the
helping
cable
us.
in the back. And
He
then
was the guy to put the cables in the
It's
back.
like, do this, but with this Nintendo thing. And it's like, oh, hang on, if we just program it like a Commodore 64, it just works. It's like, oh, it's the same chips. It's like, who would have thought?
And obviously there were the Dizzy arcade games as well. And this came about from, well, our love of Pac-Man is where it initially started, was that when we'd first got computers, right back to this, the first thing we wanted, can we make Pac-Man? Answer, no. When we got a Dragon 32, it's like, can we make Pac-Man? Well, theoretically, the machine could have handled it if we had the skills. If we could have, if we could have programmed assembler at that point, probably could have done it, but we weren't skilled enough. But we'd got to the point where we were knocking out games, and we absolutely knew how to do everything you could do on an Amstrad and Spectrum.
Well, in 2D.
In 2D. Yeah.
Not Elite. That was
No,
amazing.
we looked at it and thought, oh my God.
How the hell do they do that?
How did you do that? Anyway, but then we were just discussing it one afternoon, just saying, right now we could easily kind of go back and do a Pac-Man. It would be really easy. And it's like, oh, how long do you think that would take? Oh, a couple of days. It's like, we could do it. Actually, it would only take a couple of days. Actually, we could get another game out for Christmas. Actually, if we stuck Dizzy in it, it would sell quite well. Oh. Maybe we just do... We always had this mentality. We saw lots of sort of programmers back in those days where somebody would start to write something, it would start to have promise, and then they just kind of get bored of that and I'll do something else. And it's like, and we had this mentality of, if we start something, we will finish it, we will ship it. Even things like...
Sorry about some of the games that we did ship, because we're about halfway through going, this isn't working, is it? It's like the skiing game. It's like it's back to front and inside out. And it's like, oh God, it's
3D Starfighter was inspired by Tail Gunner, and it's like, it's not working that well. Yeah, tidy it up and ship it. It's like, we're at $1.99, and come on, guys. It's like, but pinball was another one. It's like, God, this maths is just doing our heads in. It's like, our maths wasn't that good on pinball. Well, thank you. Great.
We rescued.
Does anybody want to do a shout out for 3D Starfighter?
No.
No, we tried it, but even when you're halfway through and you go, it's not quite working how we kind of pictured it and how we imagined it. You just go, yes, but once you sort of tidy it up and spruce it all up, it'll kind of be good enough to put in the box and sell for $1.99 or $2.99. And I think pinball, I do know that a lot of people kind of liked pinball, but it did have some fundamental flaws, and I'm sure you've seen the ball skip through the walls a couple of times, and it's like, sorry, and I don't know, 3D Starfighter and all the others that maybe weren't brilliant, they were kind of okay for the price. If you were selling at full price, no way. It's like, but
we met so many
games.
people coming along to like those sort of events or whatever, where everyone was writing demos and going, oh, look, I can get more colours out of a Commodore 64, I can get parallaxing, I can do this, I can do that. And we're going, so a game there.
Just ship it. Just ship it. That's the skill. Ship it.
Yeah. And people used to sort of joke about our games not being the best, and we're going, yes, but we just keep moving on. It's just like the next one will always be better. And none of our games were perfect, but they'll always be different, and we'll always move on, and we'll learn lessons, and we'll just get through them.
And some were really well, and some
we
some
did
don't.
see some people's demos, which were unbelievable demos, and you're going, oh my goodness. It's like, Elite, I've mentioned Elite, it's like it did come out as a full game. But I'm sure there were lots of people doing demos of 3D spinning cubes and starbursts and all this sort of shit, which like never did anything. It's demos that people have forgotten. And we just said, no, we're not doing any stuff.
So anyway, we were in the middle of Grand Prix Simulator 2, and it was like, we can get this game finished. If we did sort of a Pac-Man type game, we can get it done in a couple of days. So it was Friday afternoon. We said, you know what, we'll just spend the weekend, and Monday morning, 9 o'clock, we'll be back on Grand Prix Simulator 2. So we haven't really lost any time. We haven't really stopped.
It's like a game jam.
So we just worked that whole weekend kind of without sleep, and by Monday morning we had 30 levels and a Pac-Man game of description. The graphics got tidied up a little bit over the next few days by an artist, Neil Adamson. And we got some music from David Whittaker, and we put it out, and it did sell over 100,000 copies, and it was really liked by lots of people.
But I'm not sure we haven't
got time to do a story behind every single one.
Yeah.
Keep going. Oh yeah, we did some other games as well. Grand Prix Simulator was done after Ghost Hunters, and this was, as Andrew said, because we saw BMX Simulator, so top-down racing cars, really good. Sold phenomenally well because everybody said that it was a rip-off Super Sprint,
Which it wasn't.
Which it actually wasn't.
It was a sequel to BMX Simulator.
But that publicity did no harm. It sold phenomenally well. I think it eventually got up to about 250,000 sales. So we did very, very well out of that one, as Codemasters did as well.
Hey, Fruit Machine Simulator's not on here.
Yeah, okay, we did another one as well.
I keep forgetting the games you wrote.
You do. Pinball, there you go. Shout out for pinball, there you go. Pinball. So the concept of pinball was, once we started all the simulators and we kind of worked out we could just kind of do a game, then kind of do another game off the sort of back of the first one, and we've decided on platformer, Robin Hood, then Ghost Hunters, then Dizzy, then another Dizzy, then another one, and it was all the same engine. It was like, hey, we could do the same with pinball. You just create lots and lots of pinball games. We're just basically releasing different tables every time. And it's like, oh, that's the concept. And it's like, yeah, you got to get the first one to work properly. And that was a real bugger. We felt it worked well enough that we could ship it, but we did then think, yeah, we're not doing that one again. It's like, let's just finish it and walk away. Pro Ski, we had the concept of looking at Marble Madness and thinking, wow, that looks like the coming down a mountain, and we've just gone on a skiing holiday, and that looks really, you could do like a skiing game coming down the mountain and look all 3D. And technically, it kind of looks really nice. You've seen it. Artistically, it looks really nice. The concept's really nice. The processor speed of a ZXC.
You can't scroll the screen vertically.
And
that was a bit of an knacker.
On both the Amstrad and the Commodore on the Spectrum, it just doesn't go fast enough. And we did make the mistake of the keys being the wrong way around. So we just couldn't scroll it fast enough. So we shipped it, but again, if you look at the screenshots, great. If you actually try playing it, a bit slow.
Back in the day, you were trying to think what makes a game. So, and people go, oh, you must keep looking at things and think, can you make a game of that? And it's like, because of these simulators. But the point is, we were a bit sort of fed up of like looking at games in the shops ourselves and going like Xevious and Zaxxon and Power Droid and all these like things and going, what are these things? It's like, how are you going to sell it and market it? And we were like, going, just pick on something that people enjoy and simulate it. And that was like where the simulator thing came from. We go, people like car racing, let's simulate that. People like skiing. Jet ski was because we watched The Police Academy, and there's a fantastic scene where they're just messing around like with jet skis, and we went, well, that looks so cool.
And the Cotswold Water Park.
And Cotswold Water Park, a friend of ours got a jet ski at Cotswold Water Park, and we had a go, and we're going, this is amazing. Right, we're doing that. Like, we're going to make that into a little sport.
Which, by the way, 97% of the same code, that one and that one.
Yeah.
It is kind of
pretty much the same.
Just change the variables and change the graphics.
Yeah, make it very slidey cars, and they feel like boats or
jet skis.
Anyway,
we did like reusing code.
Yeah. Anyway, should we move on because we are again taking?
Oh, we did some other games on there, 8-bit as well.
Yeah. But we have missed.
Oh, look, there's 3D Starfighter that I mentioned. We got contacted by a guy who wrote this game, Incredible Shrinking Sphere, that he'd done it on the Commodore 64. Do we want to just kind of port this across on the Spectrum and Amstrad? And he'd pay us some money. I can't remember how much it was. But we kind of looked at it and was like, that's a bit different. Yeah, we could kind of slip that in, kind of just between other work and everything. But then Codemasters were kind of starting to sort of appreciate our talent and sort of saying that they were going to negotiate a better contract, they were going to start publicising our stuff more and all this kind of stuff, as long as we were exclusive. And, oh God, right, okay. But we've just started this. So actually it doesn't even have our names on it. It has our mate's name on it who wanted a job in the games industry. So
who did get a job at Codemasters?
Who got a job at Codemasters?
That is kind of funny.
So that was all right.
So we did write that, but it's not our name.
But
then he went on and got a contract with Activision to do Ghostbusters 2 and came back and said, do you want to do Ghostbusters? And it's like, one of our favourite films is Ghostbusters. How can we say no to Ghostbusters 2?
So we did put our names on that one.
Yes.
Yeah. And yeah, we did a few other games down there as well. So I said we went across onto the consoles, or NES mainly. We went to the CES, and it was January 90, and saw the Nintendo for the first time. We'd never seen a Nintendo before. They were in this country. We just hadn't seen them. We don't get out much. Literally, we did not get out much. And you then see Super Mario, and it's like, this plays really nicely. It's a really good game, nice scrolling, everything about it works so well. And they sold 28 million copies at whatever it was, $35 or
$50, I think.
Yeah,
Anyway.
and we're like, we could make that so easily. So we just decided that we had the choice. 8-bit computer games were coming to the end. This is January 90. We just had almost the last Christmas of the 8-bit.
Well,
games,
the ST and Amiga were coming out.
16-bit ones were coming out. So we had the choice. We either moved to the ST and Amiga, but we can't draw for toffee. So that's a bit tricky. We need to get an artist for that.
We felt comfortable with 8-bit.
Yeah, we felt comfortable with 8-bit. And then we saw the opportunity of this. It's like, it's 8-bit. It's, we know what we're doing on this. But of course, our games are now going to go on sale at £30, $40 or whatever. So if we're going to do a game on that, then we need to make it bigger. And so that's the actual map of it. And the original idea.
Is that fantastic?
This is fantastic, isn't it?
Yes,
Yeah.
okay.
So the original concept was
3 games mashed together.
Yeah, just mash number 1, number 2, and number 3 Dizzy games together, and then put some sub games in there, and that should justify the price point. It's actually quite hard meshing those games together. So you might look at it and go, I can't tell you did. And it's like, well, yeah, because it's quite hard. But that was the original concept. And that took about 8 months to write, which was a bit of a drag, to be honest, and a bit of a pain. I guess at this point, I was doing that design and then designs of other games. Andrew was doing most of the programming on that, and we got another guy doing all the sub-games. So another guy, Pete, did all the sub-games for that one. But we did then put it onto all the different consoles. It did get delayed coming into market, which is really annoying.
A big court case with Nintendo.
Yeah,
that was fun.
but
this was nice. This trophy that we got, not only is it big and impressive, and I don't know where it is at the moment.
You've got it. You got all the trophies.
Yeah, it might be on. Yeah, okay, I might have it. But best NES graphic adventure game for 90 whatever. I can't quite read it. But the point is, number 2 was Zelda. That's what I like. Yes, it's like that was the thing. It was like, yay, we beat.
But having done that one NES game and got the engine going and understanding the machine and getting all your systems going and kind of a really good pipeline, we then basically just started developing all these other games. And we did BMX Simulator.
We did a lot of NES
Simulator.
games.
We snuck in before from Dizzy. Actually,
Have you got that? What's that new console with Oliverton's cartridge? That's quite. Evercade.
They're all on that.
Yeah.
One cartridge with all our NES games. 11 of them? Yes, 11 of them.
Yeah.
So
I coded most of those.
I did a little bit of some of them.
Yeah, all right.
But
that's what I was doing.
That's a pain in the arse, that one. I did
Yeah, actually the 8-way scrolling every now and then, little characters would come in. It's like, what the hell's that?
Yeah, that's my bug.
Yeah, anyhow, but yes.
So we wrote quite a lot of NES games, but you can play them all on the Evercade cartridge, and anybody who gets an Evercade, that is absolutely the best cartridge, easily.
But I absolutely love that NES because it's such a simple, basic thing, but they actually look quite slick. They've got a sort of timeless thing about them.
They do. Is there another screen of NES games?
I don't know.
Yeah, this one here. So I wrote a lot of this one and did all the graphics, all my graphics. And that's because, and the reason we did this is because the first thing we saw when we saw Super Mario Brothers was, we reckon we could do that in a month.
Yeah.
So that was I reckon I could do something like that in about a month.
Yeah.
So I don't know what it was. It was probably about 2 months to be fair. But that was our homage to Super Mario Brothers. But yeah, we did all of those games. But a lot of them didn't get released at the time.
It talks about the fact that you can get them now.
Yep.
Right.
Okay, yes, you're moving it on. Wonderful Dizzy.
Well, there you go. We just talked about it. Look, you can get them all, and that's quite a cool little thing.
And if you have an Evercade, that cartridge is amazing value. And if you don't have an Evercade, then it's pretty good value to get that with the Oliver Twins games, obviously. This, again, we always get asked, and we've done quite a few presentations at sort of places like this, and everybody always says, when will you do another Dizzy game? When will you do another Dizzy game? And we did try doing sort of a Kickstarter one back in about 2011.
And we did try to talk to Codemasters about actually doing one officially.
Yeah, we tried doing the PS2 version,
yeah.
And they basically didn't want us to do it. Anyway, we got an opportunity to do this because new guy at Codemasters, running Codemasters, was quite friendly, Frank, and he just said, look, if you're just doing something for hobbyists and you're just giving it away for free, then just do it. it's like we won't say anything. So we just decided to do this on the side, and I don't think we could write Z80. We haven't got the patience to write Z80 code anymore. But we met these guys on the internet through Facebook actually, who did the Crystal Kingdom Dizzy remake, and we looked at it and we were like, bloody hell, these guys have put a lot of effort in to make a game that already exists.
But they wanted to code it from looking at it.
Yeah, from coding it, from looking at it, just make the same game again.
I mean, we used to do that with arcade games, obviously, but
there's a reason for that. Yeah, you see.
Yeah, that's right. Yes. Yeah, old Centipede.
I don't know what you're talking about. Anyway,
Never heard of it.
But so I basically reached out to these guys and I just sort of said, you've done this game that already exists and you've really coded it. And I'll be honest, it's a really, really good version because you've cleaned up a lot of the issues and you've made it run a bit slicker and a bit better and everything. And it's graphically nicer. But the game already exists. What if we designed a new game? Could you perhaps code that? And then at the same time, which kind of made it happen, is there was a Kickstarter campaign for the Spectrum Next. Yeah, the Spectrum Next. And they asked us if we could do anything for them, maybe a new Dizzy game. And we're like, haha, funny you should mention it. Well, we were having a conversation last week about this actually. And we were like, well, I guess we kind of could. Yeah, go on then, because we want to help and support what you're doing. Yeah, we'll do a new Dizzy game. So we actually did a nice video saying, we're going to do a new Dizzy game. And then afterwards we're like, oh, we're going to do a new Dizzy game.
Quite a lot of work.
That's a lot of work. And the other thing is that people are going to expect it to be good because there's a load of Dizzy fan games out there. And
it's got to be the best.
It's got to be better than them. And it's got to be, I mean, we always sort of said the best one was Fantasy World Dizzy. We think they're the best one because it's the last one we completely did everything on. So it's got to be better than that. And actually, that's quite difficult to write that on a Spectrum. But these guys, the programmers are good, but it's the design that's the problem. And it's like, we haven't even got an idea for this. So we had this conversation at work during the day, and it's like, oh, what have we signed up for here? It's like, this is a bit of a problem. And I went to bed sort of that night after the conversation about what we signed up for. Oh God. So I was just lying there awake, not being able to sleep, thinking, oh God, this is a real problem. I was thinking, right, Fantasy World Dizzy used Jack and the Beanstalk story. Is there a classic story out there that we can kind of borrow from and basically base it around? I was thinking, Wizard of Oz. Okay, you go to another.
It's out of copyright.
Yeah, it's definitely got to be out of copyright. You go to a place beyond the rainbow or whatever, and it's like, so it's a new land. Great, brilliant, right, good, tick. And there's a bunch of characters there. Great. Wait a minute. Can we cast any of the characters we've got into their roles? We need a scarecrow. We need a cowardly lion. And we need this. Oh my goodness, we've got the right number of characters. They just all map across. Dizzy has to become Dorothy. Yeah, whatever. And then all the characters just kind of fit across, and it's like, this is amazing.
They do map really well.
They map really, really well. And then it's like, oh, the actual map. So went back to the book and kind of having just use some Google Notes, I forget what it's called, but where they've got like summaries, and it's like, oh, there are 4 territories, north, south, east, and west. Oh, you start in the middle, and that's where the Munchkins live. It's like a video game map. And it's like, this just works brilliant. And I went in the next morning to Andrew, I was like, I've solved it. I've got the story completely mapped out. And I just went through, and Andrew goes, that's brilliant. Let's just write that up. So actually, we had just released Wonderland Dizzy, and Andrew goes,
hang on, you say it came from a dream?
Yeah, it came from a dream. Sort of, yes.
And there really are the characters underneath. The
they are,
line.
absolutely.
It's a different character.
It is.
It's amazing.
Denzel.
Who would have thought?
Yes.
So yeah, that was us mapping it. We didn't use the wallpaper effect.
We used Excel.
We used Excel, yeah, which is a weird thing.
Just drew all the little cells about that big, hand drawn. I should bring that folder when I come to things like this.
Yeah,
all the original hand drawn pictures. And then Andrew scanned them all and put them all into Excel, and then he mapped where all the objects go and kind of worked it all out.
Yeah, it's like we think of all these puzzles.
Hopefully you've played Wonderful Dizzy, by the way. It's kind of good. You can just play it on the browser on the website, wonderfuldizzy.com, or Oliver Twins.
Does your head in though, trying to work this stuff out, because you think of all these puzzles, right? That item with that thing, and then you go right, and how is the story going to play through, and what's the...
We did a full write-up of the playthrough.
I know.
Before it was completely coded.
Yeah, you're trying to work out where it is and thinking you want to make it a little bit difficult, but it's got to be in the right order and then to cause the right back and forth without messing up.
There's a lot you got to hold in your head while you're kind of going, right.
Well, I had little tokens. I played it with little tokens so that...
Virtual tokens. Slide them around on your Excel spreadsheet.
Yeah. Anyway, whatever. And then, you get artwork made like this from a Disney fan made this artwork.
In Poland.
And then another fan says, I'll get that attributed. And it's like, oh my God. It's like, that's
a pretty nice Spectrum loading screen.
Yeah, it's like, that's pretty brave of you to... So that came first. That was the picture that we all like, and you got behind and you managed it and asked him to get all the characters on the screen, like a cinema poster, etc. And then some guy said, I'll do that in attributes. It's like, oh, bloody hell.
The internet's a wonderful thing where you can just connect up with these people. Go on then, have a quick 1 minute and then... It's loading.
Oh, it's...
Starts in black and white, obviously. Runs in front and behind of things, which I don't know how they do that. We couldn't do things like that on the Spectrum. Door handle's missing. That old trick. It's either the door handle or the key. It's got to be one or the other.
Well, you need to make sure that people understand what the principle of the game is. It's not shooting people or jumping on people.
You've killed the wicked witch of the east. This has got so much text in it because when you're working on a Spectrum and you've got very, very limited memory, one of the things you can do to make a world feel richer is to have conversations because each character is a single byte. Although even then it had to be compressed heavily to get it all into memory. But yeah, there's a lot of dialogue. All the characters you talk to, and we try to make it amusing. Anyway.
Right, we'll move it on.
Indeed.
There we go. Rightio. So, oh yeah, we did actually write another Disney game.
Well, this was in lockdown, when lockdown happened and COVID.
The things you do in your lockdown. Anyway, but yes, I don't know if you know about Fuse. Some guys came to us and said that they were doing this programming, basic language. When they grew up, they learnt BASIC, and it's a shame that people can't use BASIC anymore. And there's the Raspberry Pi and all this sort of thing. But they were saying that they were going to write this, or they had written this sort of BASIC emulator type thing, and they were going to get it on the Nintendo Switch. And we were like, yeah, good luck with that. Talking to Nintendo about it, and we sort of like made the glib comment, if you can get that on the Switch, we'll write a flipping game for it. And it's like, they did. I don't know how they... I'm kind of amazed because Nintendo have always been a bit closed door, and they allowed someone to make a make your own game thing on the Nintendo Switch. And it's like, so thank you, Nintendo, and thanks for these guys to actually put all that effort in and believe that it was going to work. So
Fuse on Switch is pretty amazing.
Yeah, it is a really nice
but what it needed was a game to showcase what it could do.
And we sort of said that we would write another Disney game. Oh damn it, that other one wasn't. The last Disney adventure. So anyway, so we joked that we could have probably made the Disney fast food game on the Fuse, and we started into it. Philip said, I'll get all the graphics together with some other artist guy that, so you didn't do all the graphics, but you designed it with this guy.
Jonathan Temple.
Yeah, and I said I'll do the coding because I'd played around with it and being going, oh, it's quite nice, isn't it? And I thought, how hard can it be to do something like this on a Nintendo Switch?
How hard can it be?
How hard can it be? And I sort of started writing it, and it's like, well, it's not quite hard actually. Okay, right, it was single screen before. Let's make it scrolling because that scrolling is really nice. And it's like, oh, okay.
Let's put a zoom on it.
Let's put a zoom, and then, oh, hang on.
Oh, we can put this on it. Oh, we can do this on it.
If we look at it from different angles, then they can walk behind the walls and in front of the walls. It's and I just went a bit crazy, really. I don't know. It's just like frustration. But I said over the years, you kind of like, I haven't programmed for many, many years. And whenever I used to think of things, I was like, oh, can it be done? Can it be done? And I challenged myself to try to do it. Whereas in the last 10, 15 years, I've just generally been managing teams and you're trying to push other people to do it. And then it's like, oh, damn it, it's back on me. And it's like, oh, well, I wonder if I can do it. And you just try and challenge yourself and go, I think I can. But so it just started as, let's do effectively this kind of thing on a fuse, but we were in lockdown.
We'd already got Frank to agree that anything we do that we give away for free, not a problem. So it's free.
Everything about Fuse
Oh, no.
is
Is
one,
this the
it's
video
very
that we
easy.
wanted?
It's the easiest
a bit long.
sort of typing language, a
No, it's
text-based
fine.
language.
Is it?
But it's all to make games.
We were amazed at how powerful and easy
I think
this is our promo video was, and it made fast food. We were in
Oh,
lockdown. We were doing it on a
Absolutely
webcam.
brilliant.
Look, it's all really dodgy.
There you go. It cuts into this.
Yeah, just see I can do transparent clouds. Oh, we put a map editor in there because we had to draw the map, so I thought, let's make the map editor so user-friendly that people can make their own maps if they get fed up with ours. And then you can go in and play with the code. And you can like butcher it.
You can butcher and break it.
I think it's so important. See how bad our coding is. There's some right old bodges in there actually, to be fair. But there was in a lot of our games.
Learn real coding. It's exactly where Fuse is based. This is, you love games, you've been inspired by games, let's show you how you can make games.
Yeah. Has anybody played that? Nobody. It's on the Switch. Anybody got a Switch? Man.
Right.
Share them round.
Anyway, yes, so
So you have to.
how did you spend your lockdown? No. Right, I think we're about done, aren't we?
That's it for this sort of first session.
We can do some Q&A, but
yeah.
then we are going to be
We
wandering
got a Dizzy
around.
stamp. We're so chuffed to that. It's so nice to get a Dizzy stamp.
Everyone, I don't send many cards out, but when they do,
I got one from you the other day.
I know. Well, I bought loads. I went and got all the post offices in our area.
He couldn't be
and
asked to
just
drop by my house, and he had a document that was posted to him that should have come to me.
So I just stuck a Dizzy stamp on it.
Yeah, so I got this stamp. My wife sort of got a Dizzy stamp on this. I was like, that'll be for Andrew.
I got hundreds. It's like, it was really funny actually going to all the local post office saying, have you got the new
The
stamps?
video
the
game
collector's
stamps?
things, the video game stamps.
I just want those.
Yeah, I just have those strips. Can I have all of them? And they go, I was like, well, it's mine. And they go, oh, really? Really? It's like, yeah, one of the post office girls going, like she's a woman. I shouldn't say girl. She said, I used to play those games when I was younger. And it's like, well, that's great. Can I just buy all the stamps, please? Buy the whole it wasn't the whole sheet. It was every other sheet. It was like, anyway, so I've got hundreds of the damn things. So if anyone, gets a letter from me, I pay way over the postage because this is a £1.80 and usually you don't need to put that much on it.
£1.60. £1.60.
£1.60, yeah. But anyone who gets a birthday card from me gets a Dizzy stamp on it.
That's it.
Okay.
Right, Andrew, you're supposed to put that back on. There you go. Did you know with perfume bottles, I don't know if they do this these days. I don't buy
we're
perfume
being filmed
bottles.
already.
I don't buy
Watch
perfume
out.
bottles. I know, but they always used to put like, little packing at the bottom, and it turns out that if you put the weight higher, it makes it feel heavier because it tips easier. So they always used to put little packing bits and fold the cardboard and then put the bottle on top so that it's shifted the weight up so that it would feel heavier and make it feel more expensive. That's a thing.
They do.
I just didn't know that. I don't know if they still do that, but I know I heard about it once and it's like, oh yeah.
Codemasters got a little bit in trouble with the US brought in a packaging law and over packaging. You're not allowed to.
In Germany, they had a big issue about it as well. The
so
green point or
it
something.
was the Aladdin system, whatever that system was. The Game Genie. Game Genie came in a box. It was that sort of box. I think it was a little bit taller, maybe slimmer. But the thing itself was a little tiny cartridge, and they got a little bit in trouble for that because you're not allowed to make things feel much bigger than they physically are because it's just all packaging.
Hold on, I got an example.
Well, you've got an example of all packaging. Anyway, when are we actually going to start to talk properly?
Right.
Oh yeah.
$1.99, $9.99. Got a cassette inside it.
So justified because it takes so much shelf space. Right. Okay.
Bigger must be more expensive. Must be more valuable.
Okay. So Part 2, as promised. What I've been doing since those 80s and early 90s, carrying on making lots of games. So not quite so retro, although actually it's still quite retro, what happened in the 90s. So 16-bit, what are you doing? Pay attention.
Got some props.
Right. Okay, so 16-bit and beyond. Okay, so we'll talk about what we did in the 90s. We left Codemasters. Won't go too much over the politics of that.
Or politics of anything, really. That'd be
let's
great
not
if we
do
can
too much
avoid that.
politics because it's on film. Right. Yeah, so it was all about Blitz games. And we made lots of games at Blitz Games. And we've then done a few other studios because sadly Blitz Games went bankrupt because times change and we weren't able to change fast enough. We could see it coming, but it's a big old boat to steer, as somebody said to us once.
Shall I talk about this? So yes, after about 92, we stopped doing the NES 8-bit games, set up a studio, which then became Blitz Games. Originally it was Dizzy Enterprises, then it was Interactive Studios, and then it became Blitz Games. Hence the reason you got the logos here. This grew, we backed the PlayStation, so in 94, before anybody had heard of Sony coming into the market and the PlayStation, we approached Sony Liverpool, which were called...
Phil Howson, which is Psygnosis.
Psygnosis, so we approached Psygnosis and managed to get an early dev kit of the original PlayStation box.
Which looked like a huge photocopier. It was just a massive beige box. It was much bigger than a desktop PC. It was like, oh... but it was super impressive, and it had a dinosaur demo. It was a T-Rex 3D dinosaur, and it was like, oh, that was just so mind-blowing.
So you started programming that, and we decided that this was a really, really good a piece of hardware, and we thought that CD, having the games duplicated on CD made a lot of sense. Discs were too easy to pirate. That's what other things were. Cartridges were way too expensive to manufacture. We knew all about that because we were at Codemasters when they were producing the NES cartridges and all the other cartridges.
They took weeks and weeks.
They took weeks to manufacture those cartridges, and they were very expensive. And you had to.
And if you over duplicate, you have to put them in a desert.
Yeah. No, seriously, all of that, you do get all of those problems, and you have to put your orders sort of in up front, and then like 2 or 3 months later you get your inventory back, but you don't know at that point how good your reviews are going to turn out and how good your sales are going to be and what the customer demanded. So you really had to make some kind of very
bold decisions
on a lot of money and a lot of inventory, and whether that inventory was going to sell. And then if it did sell and you didn't order enough, then the reorder would take 2 or 3 months. Well, do people still want it in 2 or 3 months if I do this big reorder? So there were lots of problems. So we thought the idea of going to CD as your duplication, because you can get them back in a month, you can do much lower quantities. So you can get them back in a week, much cheaper to produce if you did have to bin any. That wasn't as bad. And the 3D of the PlayStation was awesome, and lots of memory and all this. So we thought it was really cool. Interestingly enough, our first pitches, so we got the dev kit in 94, way before sort of the public knew about the PlayStation. And we started writing some of the early stuff. I was going to say, did we have a launch title? It was close to launch. With Fire and Claude and Creature Shock.
Creature Shock, yeah.
So we got close to launch, I think, with a couple of our games. But a lot of the publishers we were going around were basically saying...
Irony being that we wrote a lot more games than that. Both those games I just referenced aren't even on the list.
We always seem to miss lots of games, don't we? Yeah.
We wrote too many games, just to lose count.
Yeah. But what I was going to say was that back at that point, the market was so dominating and controlled by Sega and Nintendo that the concept of somebody else being able to break into that market, the concept of Sony, the guys behind Betamax, being able to come in and break that market, nobody believed would happen. But we looked at the spec of the machine, we loved what we could do with that machine, and so we just went out there sort of promoting ourselves as PlayStation developers and trying to convince people that this was a good idea. In the games industry, it's a pretty non-starter because people had signed contracts with Sega or Nintendo and they kind of couldn't really kind of get out of them, and they couldn't really work on these. But the movie companies had not, and the toy companies had not, and they kind of saw that CD medium and Sony is kind of, oh yeah, they're justifiable. So in fact, the sort of the original PlayStation products are all from BMG, music company, toy companies, Hasbro and stuff like that, film companies, MGM and Fox and people like that. They all actually came out of those rather than the games industry, which is interesting if you look back on it. And we made a few games. Interestingly enough, the first two we haven't even listed there, but we did War Games and Chicken Run and a lot of other PS1 games there. These are all PS1.
11 or 12.
PS1 games, and the company did very, very well off it because the public loved the PS1 and the marketing of PS1 was absolutely spectacular. They did such an amazing job marketing the PlayStation 1. And as a result, our company went from 92 when we set it up in 1990 officially, but the first employees came on in 92. By the end of 99, we were up to 100 people, and we renamed the company to Blitz Games. And then we carried on. PS2 came out, the Xbox came out. Anybody know the first Xbox game in the world?
Fusion Friends.
Yay, it's ours.
Yeah.
Number one game. Well, it wasn't. Halo beat it by trumped it, but they
sales.
trumped it in sales.
Sales. No, ours was out before them. But anyway,
ours was on. The funny thing is, ours was on the shelves with our audio Xbox, and here's some games that are starting to appear. And ours was on the shelf
before the Xbox. Before the Xbox.
Whereas I think Halo came out on the day of the Wii launch. So by the time you actually went to go and pick up your Xbox, it's like, oh, got a new game for you, Halo. And they go, oh well, we actually ordered the one.
Halo was pretty good. Halo was pretty good to be fair. But Fusion Friends is pretty good too. Anyway, so we then carried on, produced, and we grew the company up to, well, as it says here, up to at one point 235 people. That was about the end of about 2010-ish.
Games just need bigger and bigger teams.
Yeah, every time you go through a different console generation, the power goes up, the memory goes up, the capacity of what's possible goes up. But to fill that capacity, you need more developers.
The price in the shops of the discs stays the same,
wow.
And your user base is smaller because it's a new machine.
Yeah,
so it has
that is a problem.
Fundamental problems
every time you change generations, but you kind of have to as well. And also, if your competitors grade up, then you've got to sort of go to the next generation. But yeah, every time you go through a generation, your dev teams kind of double and your budgets double, which is why we get some insane figures of how much games cost these days, because we've gone through quite a lot of doubling already.
It's like exponential Moore's law. It's like it was going to happen.
And it is quite staggering. But obviously this was the days of everything's boxed, everything's controlled by the publishers, everything's funded by the publishers. And the way you can justify the development budgets and the licenses and everything else is through making sure you've got global sales. So in fact, whereas we'd kind of been quite parochial, just playing to the UK market and maybe some French sales and stuff of some of our stuff, and a few American sales with the NES stuff, we then started finding that all of our publishers were global publishers, like the likes of MGM and Fox and Hasbro and BMG. As I said, from not traditional games industry, but these were the people who could actually finance and fund games and then putting them out globally. So we created an enormous number of games. It says there 72 different titles, 159 different games. So an Xbox game and a PlayStation 2, that's two games by that definition, but one title effectively. And we reckon that we've done some maths, we've got a big spreadsheet. We reckon it's about $1 billion worth of retail sales of our games. Move on.
Mm-hmm.
Living in the 90s. Why have we got that slide there?
I have no idea. Oh, this is just what we did in the 90s. That's just like, remember the 90s? Yeah. What were we doing? That's why I put it there. It was just like, it's kind of funny. It's just like, oh my God. It's like Spice Girls. Remember them?
And
like,
Nokia phone.
Jesus.
And a Game Boy. Yeah. So this is what was happening then. So Andrew, very quickly.
Yeah, so we left Codemasters because things got a little bit difficult to do with the consoles. And we got a few contracts, small contracts, porting some games. Creature Shock was a Argonaut game. Judge Dredd, just a game. We made some small games as a transition of setting up our company. But as Philip said, after the odd Mega Drive, I did 2 Mega CD games actually. I did Syndicate and Theme Park on Mega CD, which was interesting. And a Sega Saturn game.
That's all of our PlayStation 1 games there.
That is...
not that one. Anyway, keep going. And
Okay. So we wrote those in the 90s. Titan, that was a tragedy. It says
that's why I kept going to the Fox building. I mentioned the Fox building earlier. It's because of Titan AE.
But it never got published, and we'd pretty much finished it. But to the point where they were doing some demo CDs to try to sort of like send it to journalists and stuff. It never actually came out. Oh, we're talking about rare things, because we were just talking about earlier the fact that there's some rare product that that only came out in a few things. That must be pretty rare, because there was just a few demo CDs sent to journalists. So yeah, good luck finding that one. Right. Hello, what's it doing?
This is an example.
What is it? Show reel of something. What? Oh, it's a very low res. Sorry about that.
And the courage to save the world single-handedly. Glover. Strength. Glover's got the magic and the moves to mash big bad bosses. Skill. Glover's got the brains to solve mind-boggling puzzles. And talk about courage. Glover's got the to handle any challenge. Glover for Nintendo 64 and PC CD-ROM. Gotta love the glove.
Well, I don't know why that was in there, that little commercial, but it's quite fun. Obviously, just put it in for a bit of a joke.
Just one of our games.
It was just one of our games, but I mean, we said we were fans of Marble Madness or whatever, and there was just some fun with the mechanics of Marble Madness, and we also loved the idea of the crazy golf, particularly when we went to sort of America. It was actually a
Pirates Cove.
Cove in Florida. We went around with our parents when we were about 17 or something, and it's like the crazy golf of Pirates. It's actually now coming here. We're starting to get the indoor like golf things and stuff like that. But we were just saying, right, we're going to make a game out of that. You know, golf simulator, but crazy golf simulator, or adventure golf as they now call it. But we realised that, hang on, whilst the ball is kind of fun, like the mechanics of a ball, you can't really play as the ball. Like that's, but it's the putter that's fun, but it's just a stick. That's a really hard thing to do. And we just came up, and Philip had this meeting with a guy going, we've got this idea, and it's a ball. And he bought a ball, and we were in a restaurant, and he's like playing around with this ball, going, it's really fun to sort of like move it around and navigate, and like you could throw it into hoops and stuff like that. And he goes, but you kind of need one of these. And it was like, and we're going, why don't we just make it a hand? And it's like, because it's the Addams Family and it's a bit weird. It's like
a severed hand.
A severed hand as your character that you're playing. And then we said, well, yeah.
Could be a glove. Oh, glove.
A magic glove. So, yeah. And yeah.
It ended up being called Glover.
Yeah. And
it was called Whack and Roll for many years.
And his evil enemy, Glovel. So it was his right glove and his left glove. And it's like, it's like the twin gloves. Which one's evil and which is the good? Anyway, whatever. Moving on. Okay, so go on.
Okay, yeah. So I think I briefly mentioned earlier that once we got into the new millennium, we'd got up to the next generation machines, PlayStation 2 and the Xbox. Obviously, Microsoft had now joined the market, and I mentioned the Fusion Frenzy we did first. And we were seen as a big successful company, an independent studio that lots of these people could commission. It was still tough business. It was still difficult to do, but we managed to make a good business out of it and expand the team and expand it. And then kind of it just got bigger and bigger and bigger. All the teams, you started getting team sizes now of 50, 60 people making some of these games. And unfortunately, the margins go down rather than the margins go up and the profit level goes up, the margins actually go down. So although the money coming through the door was like much, much bigger, the actual what you got left over after you've paid everybody got a lot smaller. And in some cases, if there's overrun, it got to a negative figure. And there's quite a few games we made where we actually lost money, which is a real shame. And we also learned the power of the exchange rate, which we never really considered before, but the dollar-pound exchange rate made a massive difference because we're signing contracts with Americans in dollars, but when they come over to the UK, they were actually being worth less because the pound was getting stronger and the dollar was getting weaker. I didn't realise it could have such a detrimental effect, but effectively at one point, and this is one of the reasons why eventually Blitz went bust, one of the reasons, is that it slid against us by about 20%. There was only like a 10% profit margin in the contract in the first place. So when the dollar slid, pound slid.
Yeah.
No, dollar slid.
You more to make.
It was costing us more to make the games than it was actually than they were paying. So that affects your finances a little bit. There
were lots of problems. I mean, the fact is, you've got the the big companies making certain games, and if they work really well, they take them internal. So you see the sort of big ones just being doubled down and sequelizing because they own them, and all the other ones were kind of around the side. We'll experiment with new markets and see what works, and if it works, we might give them a sequel, but we might just take it inside. One example is Frogger. They weren't sure whether they wanted to do another Frogger game, so it's like they gave it to us. We made a Frogger game. It sold really, really well. We're really, really proud.
And Konami said, "We'll take that back."
So
internally.
Konami took it back, and they made another Frogger game, which personally, looking at the camera, I don't think was great. It's like, I'll let the customers decide.
Frogger 3, the Quest one.
The Quest, something like that, yes. Well, they didn't keep to the fundamental, it's a frog bouncing, like avoiding things. That is the gameplay of Frogger.
And tile-based.
It's like they made it animal-sized or whatever into a human and ran around, and it's like
Tomb Raider.
It becomes any other game. So it's a shame that sort of, even when you do have a success,
it can get taken off you.
It gets taken off you, and you don't automatically get to benefit from the success of it. But then sometimes you do, because we did lots of American Idol,
we did lots of SpongeBob games,
lots of Bratz games. Bratz obviously being the Spice Girls, but I'm sure there's lots of stuff about that, but they are clean.
I'm sure the courts said not.
Yes, the courts say they are not the Spice Girls. The toys and the marketing differ. Anyway.
Yeah. So you can see there's kind of a series of 4 of those, and I think there were a few SpongeBobs. Okay, so that's what we were doing during that period. So an enormous number of games on lots of platforms.
Oh, we've got a funny commercial. I don't know what this is. Pac-Man.
Oh yeah, being fans of Pac-Man, it was so nice to be able to do the 30th anniversary Pac-Man.
Bringing it properly into the 3D world, but trying to keep to a lot of the original mechanics. Again, really, really proud of it, and it did really well, but
some politics in the background.
Yeah.
You played in a Ghost there. There you go, you recognise that bit.
It's got some hidden mini games. That music's going on a bit. Looks a bit like Dizzy, doesn't it? Do you think, with the boxing gloves and stuff?
Yeah,
big red boots and boxing gloves.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
I know, who thought of that? I think the M&M characters have copied Dizzy as well, but that's a whole another thing.
You got the dots, the power pills, the fruit.
I don't remember Transformers being in the original Pac-Man. That looked like Transformers to me. But anyway, obviously a popular thing. So everyone's going digital, but we know that in the 10s. We had lots of problems. There was the financial crisis in 2008, which meant that a lot of the big publishers that were commissioning products had to rein it back a bit because the things were going. So the quickest way to rein things back a bit is don't commission third-party developers. So we saw a lot of third-party developers
if you've already got an internal team and they're already working on a big franchise, then that's worth keeping and that's worth backing. But if it's a new license, it's a new product, it's an external developer, just don't commission them in the first place.
So it's just an easy
rein it
way.
Back. Rein it back.
And you saw, Activision used to have loads and loads of games, and then they just went back going, you know what, even Guitar Hero and things, just stop it all.
Just rein it in.
Yeah, so we'll just do Call of Duty because it seems to work, and it does. It's brilliant, but it would be nice to have variety. Anyway, so we then started to look to other places because we couldn't get work from the standard publishers, even THQ, which we'd done a lot of games for, went bankrupt. It's like, oh my God, our main publisher's gone bankrupt, which was a bit of a get. We looked into doing some serious games, and
we did get a few large, big titles.
Yes, we did.
Mickey Mouse. We've probably heard of that. It's quite an iconic character.
But then Disney Interactive closed.
Yeah,
didn't help us.
Exactly. So on the release of this, Disney Interactive actually closed the division. It's like, oh, thanks. We were going to do loads more work with them. We were contracted to do loads more work with them, and they closed the division. So
that was a very happy relationship. It's just that at the top, it was just like, look, these games
they're just closing the division.
Yeah, and it's understandable. I mean, they just didn't work. Anyway, we did some serious games, which this doesn't really talk about. Sorry, it does. We did things like a 3D polar bear for a live polar bear for the Super Bowl adverts where you could talk, and the polar bears were all CG and would comment on the score that was happening to prove
in the Super Bowl
in the commercial space. Well, that was quite cool. A Geico gecko that you could talk to, yay, talking character, and Moogie Mocha is another talking character which we did, which was really cool. So we did some serious games. Only half those people paid us. I shouldn't say which half because that's politically sensitive to those who didn't pay us. And then we did some digital games because the iPhone and stuff were taking off. And it looked like you could have made a market out of sort of like selling games for $1.99. Who would have thought that's a market? But then they went to free. And that sort of, it's really, really hard to sort of make games where you pretty much have to give them away and hope that you can make money out of adverts or other in-app purchases. And effectively, it didn't work. So the irony is, if people had paid us what we had contracts for, it would have carried on. It was purely because we had multiple people like.
We won't talk about who,
no,
but several large companies actually just stopped paying us all at the same time, and so we had to come clean. We had something like 200 staff. We had to come clean and say, unfortunately, our clients haven't paid us, which means we can't pay you, which means we actually have to legally tell you, and we legally have to close the business. So it's a voluntary liquidation.
And because we've been running quite some time, it's actually difficult under British law to say, let's just lay off half the staff and only work on the paying contract.
Because you can't actually afford to pay those.
The redundancy.
You can't pay the redundancy. If you lay people off, you've got to pay redundancy.
Yeah.
You couldn't afford to pay the redundancy.
But anyway, that's, politics of business. Oh, you live and learn, hey. Right, moving on.
I think we've learned quite a few lessons.
We have. Is there going to be another commercial or just crashed?
Commercial breakdown.
Oh, let's show Mickey, because we like Mickey.
Mickey's awesome.
We had a lot of people on this one. I mean, apart from about 100 people internally probably worked on it, we had a couple of hundred subcontractors. It is huge. We used to sort of say, should we just make the game a bit smaller? And they go, Epic's in the title, it's got to be big.
But everybody remembers Mickey Mouse from that kind of Fantasia scene, and we actually recreated the whole Fantasia that you could play. It was awesome.
Yeah, there's some very, very cool stuff in there, and the game is way too big. I mean, that is a little bit of a problem that most people who bought it probably didn't see half of the stuff that had gone in.
It is huge.
Anyway, don't play it again. Okay, so unfortunately, it went down.
I'll take over. Yeah, so we set another new business up, and this time we sort of changed the business model around a little bit. We saw that everything was going sort of digital. It was online. You could go and do updates and everything. And I kind of came up with this concept of what if you mash together the concept of Minecraft, where players can build.
Minecraft was quite popular at this point.
It was. Where you could kind of build, things, but rather than it being local to you that you're building, you're actually building in a cloud-based environment, a bit like Google Docs. My original design document references Google Docs.
I think it was written in Google Docs.
It was. Where everybody's kind of able to create, and everybody's able to sort of create these worlds together. But then, just like Minecraft allowed you to sort of procedurally generate islands and stuff like this, that we would also do something similar, where you created your own islands, but you could then visit generated islands with enemies and resources and all this kind of stuff. And we kind of, the other thing was we were kind of looking at the style of Minecraft, and bear in mind, we just started things like Epic Mickey, and you're looking at Minecraft going, think we could improve the graphics a fair bit. So we thought the kind of this nice, bright, Pixar-y type look was a sort of a great way to go visually. And so we set up a new company to do this online world, which ended up being called. I went around pitching everybody, and we got...
Most people to understand, to be fair.
Yeah. But because we were starting again from fresh with a new company, part of the contract says that they have the right to cancel it at any point if they want, because they're paying for it. They also have the right to keep the IP. They also have the right to keep the IP in the event of cancellation. Now, when you read that contract, you kind of think that's because we've fucked up. We've kind of made a mess of it. Actually, it wasn't used in that way. We actually did quite a nice game for them, but actually they cancelled it anyway, and they took it in-house. And unfortunately, the game actually never properly came out after that. I don't actually know why, because I'm not in-house and I don't see the politics of what went on after it was taken off us.
No, we're never really told.
After Radiant Worlds, after the game was cancelled, we had a huge team. I think it was about 100 people.
They're here,
yeah.
In front of the office.
Everybody there that kind of worked at the business. And we had a huge team, done some really, really clever stuff. Online world where everybody can kind of create and share properties and all this kind of stuff. Some people might call this the metaverse.
But anyway.
Just saying, just putting it out there. That world didn't exist at that point. Anyway, we decided that without new work and without new funding, one option was to actually just sell the team to somebody else that would like to create something kind of similar, or just use a lot of very, very good developers. And in fact, we went around putting the company up for sale without an IP, which is a little bit strange, but we didn't have a choice.
A whole load of good developers.
But actually, we got a fair bit of interest from multiple companies that were interested in a whole bunch of developers, really, really good, seasoned developers, all working together, amazing technology. And the best offer on the table was from Rebellion. And so they purchased most of the team. I say most of the team because actually we went off and did something else with some of the rest of the team. So they bought the majority of the team, and we went on to work with Rebellion.
Yeah, we've kind of finished off the Sniper Elite because that game is pretty massive, and they just wanted extra people.
So a few extra people went onto that.
And then
a lot of people went on to Strange Brigade. A bunch went on to Evil Genius 2. Most of Evil Genius 2, if you know that game, well, that was actually made inside what was the Radiant World studio, although we had actually moved building by that time. Shall we do a quick
what's this one? I don't know what it's going to be.
Oh, Sky Saga.
So you can see.
So this is what Sky Saga looked like before it was cancelled. I don't know if anybody ever saw Sky Saga.
There we go, and you could play it. It was live. That was 2017. So there you go.
But unfortunately,
massively multiplayer online game. They got canned. Yeah. Anyway,
these things happen.
So yeah, I mean, we carried on running our studio as Rebellion, doing the Strange Brigade, and we thought that we'd carry on doing that. In our contract, it was a year transition, and we thought, yeah, but we'll just
it's a
carry on.
handover phase.
Yeah, but then we just generally agreed at the end of that year
that there wasn't any more for us to do. So we went our different ways, and we weren't sure exactly what to do, so we set up a sort of a game consultancy agency where we could kind of go into companies and advise them. We found that a lot of indies who were in financial trouble said, could you advise us, but we don't want to pay you. We actually ended up advising quite a lot of them.
We did, but they had no money.
But they had no money.
That's why they were asking us to go
and of course, the companies who are all successful and have got the money to pay don't really want us telling them what to do. So they don't want us either. So we actually found that it wasn't really a very good business model, even though we think that we've got a lot to offer people. They didn't really think that we did either, or they didn't think that we did have So we ended up doing lots of university talks and doing lots of stuff and sort of a bit of a sabbatical, effectively. But during that year, we kept saying that there's got to be big new opportunities, big new genres out there. And everybody has one of these days. And so this is the obvious market to sort of play to. But is there a niche product out there, but is it a niche that's big enough that actually it'll be a really, really good business? Can you do something on something like this? Sorry, just got a text. It's like, wait, stop it.
Look at the other side.
Look at the other side.
People then say you don't know how to use a phone.
And when we were doing these university talks, we just kept telling people, look, if you want to set up a new business, for God's sake, don't go head to head with people. Don't create products that already exist because they've already got the market. But there are going to be new opportunities. There are going to be new openings. Before Minecraft, there wasn't kind of anything. Then all of a sudden that came along. Before TikTok, there wasn't anything. TikTok was just coming in. That was a big thing to talk about at the time. And it's like, look, kind of a year ago, there was no TikTok. And now look, it's like, it's massive and it's even bigger now, obviously. So there are things out there that haven't yet been created that could be created. You just got to think what they are. And we did about 25 university talks in that year.
But we kept on travelling back and going, yeah, what is it? Because we say, just do something original, for God's sake. Like if you're going to do something, your students or you're a small team, just stop trying to say that you're going to clone Candy Crush or clone this or clone that, because they've got the market, and it wasn't about the technical ability of making that.
A lot of it is marketing.
It's marketing. It's like, but if you do something that's revolutionary, like a Minecraft or something, you don't need to spend masses of money on marketing because it's just a cool idea that will sell. So just do something different. Just do something unique. And people go, that's really easy to say. We can't think of anything. And we're going, well, that's what you've got to do. Like your on game design courses.
We were always travelling back from these talks, just thinking about it and mulling it over, thinking, well, there are going to be big new things.
What
in
are
the
the
future.
big new things just around the corner?
Yeah, what are they? We were basically kind of kicking around lots of different ideas of, well, maybe this, maybe that, maybe this. And one of the things that kind of got us was the fact that you can talk to Siri, and most of you can talk to Alexa, Siri, whatever, and it's really bloody clever the way it actually understands you. Or does it? Actually, what it does is it answers you, but it's never got any kind of depth. It's like, I can't even remember what you asked it 2 seconds ago, quite frankly. And we were saying, that seems a missed opportunity. Wouldn't it be really, really cool if you could talk to it and have a conversation and actually it had much more interest and stuff? And it had personality. And we were saying, yeah, but what personality? And we were like, what personality?
Talk to Mickey. Talk to
different characters.
Yeah.
Talk to sort of all these. And we were thinking, what you really need is a system whereby people can write their own stories with characters and those characters talk back to you and you can talk to them. That would be really cool. And the more we thought about it, the more we thought,
yeah, we could do that.
Yeah, let people make really interesting stories themselves and share with the community really interesting stories. But you talk to the characters and the characters talk back to you. But we just got to make sure that we make it easy enough that anybody can do this, particularly writers. Like if you look at somebody like a J.K. Rowling or a J.R. Tolkien, going a long way back, you can't say, got to learn how to code, because that's kind of a bit of a blocker.
I mean, the film's really good, but I doubt that she would have had the finance to make the Harry Potter films. You know?
So you've got to make it...
But you can write a book.
Yeah, exactly. So you've got to basically make it so easy that a creative writer like that would go, you know what, I could use Google Docs, I could use Word, or I could use this other product. And then the characters will actually all talk for themselves and you can talk to them. So we thought, that's actually quite a good idea.
I don't know what slide is coming next.
I don't know what slide is coming next.
That's something else. That says violence. Why does it say violence? It's not violence. Oh, well, that should have been on that slide. Sorry. I think the last one was going to show Sniper Elite. We've all seen Sniper Elite. It's quite violent, but it is actually quite cool as well.
It is very, very
Anyway,
good. Sniper Elite series
we
is
probably
pretty
should have
good.
been talking on that slide where we were just talking about
The future.
What is the future going to hold? Probably not phones that bend. Although that's coming off the
Sorry,
internet.
you say that.
Oh, bend.
They're all on sale. Oh. I'm not sure I want one, but...
So we've set up a new company called Panavox.
In lockdown, because actually one of the reasons why this actually came to a head was when COVID struck, we were like, well, we can't go out and do those university talks anymore. All the universities were kind of disbanding and they were kind of in a right fractured mess. The last thing they wanted is people offering to come and do talks, but even offering to do them over video, they would have had enough issues it's like, to deal with. So we kind of thought, well, we've been kicking this idea around. Maybe we should do this.
After doing that fast food
After you did the fast food thing, yeah.
It's like we started to do some stuff.
So we actually decided that we will set up a company to do this. We joined up with one of the programmers who we used to work at Blitz, really, really good guy, Neil Campbell. He worked with Andrew.
Yeah, we wrote Little Mermaid.
A few other bits and pieces.
Yeah, actually, he was with us for 10 years, so I ought to know, but
you can't remember all the games you wrote.
I distinctly remember. It was a PlayStation 1 game. So he
was sitting alongside you for that.
Yes,
so.
he was. So.
But anyway, he's really good. So we basically, just at the start of the COVID, we sort of phoned him up and actually said, we need a really, really good programmer. We thought of you, and we got this concept and this vision, and what do you think? And he said he really liked the idea, and he went away and did a little demo. Once he'd done the demo, we like, yeah, let's do this. So we formed a new company, Panavox.
I'll show you the little commercial.
This is the commercial for what we're making.
Introducing Richcast, Next Generation Media, a new universal format for interactive streamed entertainment. A convenient, easy-to-use library, player, and editor opens up a whole new world of possibilities. Everyone loves entertainment and information on their mobile phones. It's even better, more personal and engaging when that entertainment is interactive. But developing interactive media is currently difficult and expensive. Richcast is the answer. As one of the most exciting new creative apps, Richcast has a whole host of features like voice recognition.
Where should we go, Holmes?
Let's go to the bedroom.
Artificial intelligence characters, and the ability to import your own art, video, and audio, or choose from the inbuilt media library. Download today and you can create, share, and publish interactive titles through the built-in fast and easy-to-use no-code editor. Richcast is unique and groundbreaking. Richcast is Next Generation Media.
And that is what we're making at the moment. And I have it on my phone.
Yeah, it's running on mine as well. It's not out yet.
It's not out yet, unless you live in the Philippines, bizarrely, as of last week. We're just starting our technical tests.
But the idea is to allow people to just write things. At the moment, you're seeing a lot of comic book art and things like that, and you'll be able to easily make those sort of things. There's some people making some escape games on there because it's really good at those sort of puzzles. You know, pick up key, open door, find those sort of things.
Or door handle.
Yeah, I was at a film studio the other day trying to explain to an actor that they have to act, and then every now and then look straight to the camera and say, "What do you think we should do?"
He's a very good actor, I'll be honest.
He's good.
He's so good.
But then I said, but then you have to sort of wait, but not freeze. Okay, we don't want that Leslie Nielsen thing, because you've got to give them about 3 seconds to talk. Because they're talking to their phone and saying, like, go and look at the dead body. They're sort of talking to their phone. So it started off
and
with...
then you have to have multiple answers of like...
Oh, yeah, and then they've got to...
I'm sorry, what did you say?
Yeah, and then he has to... Yeah, so you have...
Oh, you want me to take the door? Okay!
Yeah, so it's a really...
He's a really good actor, to be fair.
Yeah, it's a really fun challenge because he's asking the question and then pausing, and he has to remember, not pausing, he has to be a little bit sort of idle, because as the person answers the question and says, well, why don't we do this? He says, yeah, actually, I think that's a really good idea. We'll do that. Or, oh, didn't think of that. Yeah, let's do that. So he then has to go and do the sort of branching systems and then move to different places or whatever. So at the moment, our first movie is kind of with one actor, as we're working out how to do it with more actors.
There's one getting cast at the moment with multiple actors.
Yeah, so it's fun and interesting. So we've started getting the technology all working, that it can all be scripted and quite easily made, and anyone can make it if it's just sort of 2D.
By the way, all of you can download it right now for free. It's on PC and Mac.
Yeah.
And you can actually make your own stories.
But
and you can
at the moment, you'll probably
talk
end
back.
up making like comic book stories because it's quite easy to just load in pictures. The film stuff is getting a bit more challenging, but we're like taking it through different levels. So, but we think it's quite exciting, and we think it'd be really interesting because at the moment all media is linear. It's like people go, oh, you can talk to you. It's like, yeah, you can ask them the volume to go up or down, or go to the next track.
Play music.
Yeah, I'll listen to something else. But now you'll be able to talk to the characters. And ironically, this is what we've always wanted in video games. You know, we've had all of these characters. Super Robin Hood on a spectrum spoke, but it didn't understand if you spoke back. It's like, and even like Epic Mickey, it's like all those characters talked with all the original voices, which was hugely expensive and logistically challenging. But you could never speak back to them. At best, you made a choice by pressing a button. What happens when you take this to the metaverse and you remove the buttons? you're kind of stuck, aren't you?
So yeah,
So we
that's what
thought,
we do.
can't talk to you. Why don't you just talk back?
And why don't we make it so that anybody can make this content? And hopefully we will find the next J.K. Rowling or whatever who uses this platform and makes it really successful and popular. And obviously the kind of modern world that we're in is you can download the software for free, you can use it for free, but there are monetization options in there and there's royalties out to the original creators and everything else.
Yeah. Here we go. Right. So let's just show an example. I'd like to give you a little, I don't know which one it is, but these are just individual authors making these. There's somebody playing it, obviously.
911, what's your emergency?
Hello? I need help.
911, what's your emergency?
Yeah, hi. I want to report a theft.
Can I get your name and location?
Yeah, it's Ryan Ellis, 155 Anderson Avenue off Lincoln.
What should I do?
Okay, stay calm. What can you see in the room?
Oh, God!
There we go. Have we got another one?
No, I think that's it.
No. Oh, we haven't got another one. Anyway, there's a set of interesting titles that people are making because when we first did this, it's like, what sort of games could you make that you talk to? And you go, Sherlock Holmes. It's like, go and talk to the witnesses and work out who is lying.
Or not witnesses, but the people
who were there when the person died. Or
a murder happened.
Spoiler. Yeah, so
Sherlock
it's like,
Holmes,
oh yeah,
died.
clearly you can do a game by interviewing and working out who the murderer is. And it's like, okay, so you can do murder mystery games.
So we've got a couple of those.
There's lots of...
The 911 one was a sort of a concept I came up with saying, wouldn't it be really cool if you had lots of people calling in and all you had was the ability to talk to them, but they had all their different situations, what was going on. I mean, one of them is just the cat stuck up a tree. And, like, oh, for God's sake. And so you as a 911 operator go, really? Oh, am I going to send somebody out? Oh, I don't think so. It's like, just leave it while love. It's like, so you get the choice on the 911 operator to tell them to go away, but actually one of the calls comes in and it's really scary. And then there's a couple of other funny ones.
Yep.
So
there you go. That's what we've been up to.
Thank you for taking the time to listen to today's episode. If you enjoyed it and like what I do on the channel, join the official Cave Dwellers over at patreon.com/RMC Retro.